Hey everybody, it's Adam again and welcome back to my garage. Today we're going to work on my 1983 BMW 320i, obviously E21 body code. Typically I use this for autocross and track days and the occasional summer road trip, but today we're going to go ahead and upgrade some things that really aren't that critical, but we might as well take a look at it before we're going 120, 130 miles an hour down the track. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to upgrade to EBC Yellowstuff brake pads. Why didn't I choose red stuff brake pads if this is a track car? Well, with the occasional street use, I wanted something that I could take out to the track, run for 20 to 30 minutes hard, and still be able to drive it to and from without having to heat up the brake pads. Also, you may ask, well, that doesn't look like an E21 front brake pad. It's because I have Volvo 4-pot calipers on the front. So we'll talk a little bit about how we made those work back when I installed them 10, 15 years ago. For the rear calipers, this is a E30 brake pad. And actually, we're upgrading to E30 rear calipers because I couldn't find any high-performance pads for my 323i pads. Again, another upgrade that we did in the past, we went ahead and implemented 323i rear trailing arms with the disc brake on them because I wanted disc brakes instead of the old drum brakes in the back. Something else we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and update our fuel pump in the back. You may remember when we were prepping for the road trip last year, I broke my other fuel pump and installed just a random one I found laying around in the barn, which has worked fine up to this point. If I have the time, I'm going to go ahead and put in a new in-tank low-pressure fuel pump. And then, of course, also, we're going to update our brake flexible lines to these Turner Racing braided steel lines that are actually, they got a coating on the outside as well. But we're going to go ahead and upgrade these because it's been a while since I've touched those. And actually, when I bought those rear trailing arms, I just slapped on what the guy sent with them when I bought them off of eBay. So come along for the ride. Hopefully we get this done. We got track day in a week. We'll see if we get everything together by then. If not, I guess brakes and a fuel pump aren't that critical for a track day anyways. And you'll just waste money out on the track by not even starting that day. Come along for the ride. All right, let's go a little in depth on this brake caliper up here and what we got going on. So up here we've got the Volvo 4-piston caliper and a pre-79 E21 vented rotor. On the 83 and I think from like 80 on up to 83, basically they had a solid rotor on there. I don't know why they downgraded, but on the earlier E21s you could get this vented rotor, so that's what that is on there. And then this is a Volvo caliper off of a 1991 240 Volvo. And I will go ahead and put the part number in there once I post this video up. That way, if you're interested in doing the Volvo upgrade yourself, you'll have the right part numbers there.
Yeah, the nice thing about these calipers here is basically they got a little clip up on the top of here. And if you can, lucky enough to get this thing to rotate in here, you can remove basically these clips, pull the pins, and you can drop the new pads down in there. We'll see if we're able to get that off. If I can't, I'm prepared to go ahead and loosen these guys up on here and just pull the whole caliper off, but we'll see what happens. So as I'm working on this pad here, a little bit of story about the Volvo caliper here and how you get that to work. It's not a simple plug and play. You do have to do a little bit of grinding on there. But basically what you do is you grind these ears where the caliper mounts. You have to take about probably 4 or 5 millimeters of material away. It effectively turns it into a slot, and you have to move the caliper in towards the center of the spindle out here. And I managed to get it down far enough to where there's maybe a little bit of overhang here on the pad, but in the 10 years I've had it on, really have had no issues, even with the pad wear in there, and even the rotors, as you can see, they're looking pretty good still. Another thing worth noting is you can fit the standard 13-inch wheels on here from the E21, if you also shave a little bit of the outside of the caliper off as well. Some guys have tried it. They jam their wheels up when they do it. So you got to be very, very careful and finesse it. You probably have to come at it a couple times. But basically, I took a file and filed down the edges of this. Not much material there, but that allowed me to fit effectively my winter or the rally tires on there that I used in the rallying video some years back. Another thing we got to do as we're working on these, we got to make sure we get those caliper pistons reset there, because we're going to be putting a thicker pad on here. So we got to get these pistons pushed back in here as we're doing this job.
Take a look at these pads real quick. They got quite a bit of pad life left on them, and I would say that's after, geez, probably 25 autocross events and one track day. And I've really had these on here since about 2008, because I put them on when I did the M42 swap. And you know, we'll probably hang on to these and set them in the garage somewhere and look at them maybe 20 years from now and figure out what I'm going to do with them then. Another thing worth mentioning about doing this caliper upgrade, it's kind of hard to see, but I did have to shim the caliper out just a little ways as well, because you can see the clearance down there between the caliper and the rotor. Very, very close clearance there. You got to shim it out just enough to get it away from that little block down there. What I would recommend is just, again, sort of trial and error, find a shim size that works for you. But you know, at the end of the day, the good thing was I could reuse the bolts on there, and basically, yeah, all you had to do was slot this caliper, slide her on there, and that's it.
Just going to try to push these pistons back in here, being careful not to mar up the surface of my brake rotor, but they're going back in pretty easy. Sometimes when you've got these 4-piston setups, when you push in one side, it'll want to sort of push out the other side. In this case, it looks like all these are kind of going back in pretty easy. You don't want to push them in too far and have them pop out of your dust covers here, those little rubber pieces. All right, the next thing we're going to do is apply the backing to these pads, and then we're going to go ahead and slide these down in there. So it comes with the backing, just kind of a noise-reducing backing there between your caliper pistons and the brake pad itself. All right, we got the driver's side corner done here, the new brake line on there, and we got the Yellowstuff brake pads on there. Let's go to the passenger side. Boy, this one's quite a bit tighter than the other side, but that'll wear in. All right, let's turn our attention over here to the flexible line. So we got the new pads on this side over here, the passenger side, and the flexible line. One thing I forgot to mention walking through the Volvo caliper upgrade is these Girling calipers have got 2 inputs or 2 inlets for the brake lines.
So you've got to buy a tee as well to basically tee off to separate the one line from the E21 out to the two lines that go into the curling caliper. Let's head over to the back. Okay, let's compare the stock 323 calipers that were on there. And then here's our new E30 caliper that we're putting on. First thing right off the bat, you can see the E21 caliper slides basically in this channel here. So that's how you got the floating caliper there. And there we go. So this guy slides back and forth as the rotor goes through here and as it gets clamped. So you get the clamping force from the other side. It wants to pull itself together. On the E30 caliper, it's, I would say, more modern design. What I'm more familiar with working on and seeing, you got these pins that slide in and out of here rather than this channel. And basically those pins are what helps center the caliper on the rotor and helps apply that clamping force to the other side as this this piston engages. Interestingly, the pads on these still have quite a bit of life left on them. However, I can see that it's actually kind of angled a little bit. So this guy was sitting on there crooked, or maybe it was hung up on one of the sides. I'm not really sure. I wasted 10 minutes trying to get these pads out of here. Since we're not going to be using these, I'm not going to take them out. But to compare the pad sizes on it, the pad size itself, the contact area really doesn't seem to be that much different. If anything, maybe the E30 pad is just a little bit taller or wider this way. But you've also got sort of this radiused pad surface as opposed to a rectangular surface here. So I don't know how much that'll help, but at the end of the day, we're able to put a higher performance brake pad on the E30, and that's what we're going to switch to. Now for the mounting points, you can see the distance between the two mounting points is the same. The E30 caliper has a threaded hole on here, whereas the 323 E21 caliper does not. So what we're going to have to do, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the hole size here, and then we're going to drill these guys out. Now another thing I'm going to have to look at before we say we're in perfect shape with this is this bracket mounting location relative to the rotor, how that compares to the E30 rotor or the E30 caliper here. We'll see how that works out. So I went ahead and separated the caliper from the bracket. And since these 323 trailing arms are pretty rare, getting hard to come by these days, I'm not going to modify anything on this side of it. If you look at it, basically you can see where the rotor goes through the bracket here. When I go ahead and put this up on the mounting surface where she's going to live, you can see that this doesn't allow me to mount that guy up fully there. And we're rubbing on the outside here. So I think where I'm going to start with is basically I'm going to measure the distance between this here, and then I'm going to measure the thickness of the caliper. And I'm going to move over, at least I'm going to start with, probably move over half that empty distance there. And that ought to be pretty close. She's pretty close as it is right there, but at the end of the day, that caliper doesn't want to move all the way out there. So we're going to try to get it right about there. All right, let's measure this rotor here. Oh,
almost exactly 10 millimeters there. So that's makes the math easy for us. And let's go measure the distance on the caliper bracket. All right, we got, man, this is making the math easy. Let's just say that's 13 millimeters there. So we got 10 millimeters of width down on the rotor, and we got 13 millimeters here, 3 millimeter difference. So that means that I want to take off 1.5 millimeters down here to move it that way by 1.5 millimeters. We're going to measure the width of this guy here now. And this is 16.2. Just for good measure, we'll check this side. 16.1, 16.1. So 16.1 to 16.2. Out here, the surface is as cast, so we're kind of dealing with that a little bit. But we got, let's just say that 16.2. We're going to subtract 1.5 from 16.2, and that leaves us with 14.7. So we're going to end up with, let's see, just kind of get eyed up here a little bit. There's a 14.7. And basically, we're going to take off enough material just here on the edge, effectively to where this radius ends on here. We're going to go grind that down in a second. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is we've got this surface here as well. We're going to have to take that surface down too, just so it's equal with those. So I don't have a Bridgeport or any other sort of nice machining tools here, so we're going to improvise on how we grind this down to make sure we keep this nice and flat. The good news is we got a nice flat surface on this side. These are machined here. We're going to clamp this down and see if our drill press can do what I hope it can do. Okay, I got my drill index out, and a 13/32 fits literally perfectly into the old hole here. So we're going to use, for those of us still on the English Imperial system, a 13/32 drill bit to widen our holes out on the new bracket. All right, here we go. All right, let's go ahead and get our other one fixtured up here, and we'll take care of the holes on the passenger side. Phase 1 is complete. Now, let's see how we can figure out how to mill these guys down here. Okay, we're going to try to get a little creative here. So again, we got to machine off 1.5 millimeters, this surface here. I was thinking about it, and if I put this grinding wheel into my drill press and just come down and kiss this here, that will at least take care of these. And I'm probably going to come back and hit this guy, but I'm just going to let my drill press do some work and take this down just like this here. So, you know, as it comes in, it's just going to come in and machine this surface. Ideally, if I had a Bridgeport, I would use that, but I don't. So we're going to give this a shot. All right, here goes nothing. You can smell metal, that's good. Just starting to get past the as cast there. .43. Okay, about another 200 microns, and we're gonna go do a test fit. .28. You know, I would say that's close enough for now. Let's go have a test fit. Before we do a test fit, take a look at the finish on that thing, man. That looks just as good as coming off the machine shop floor. I do notice, though, that this is standing a little proud here, so we're going to have to grind that down before we put her on for a test fit. Ooh, that's looking pretty good so far there. Let's get these bolts in here and take a look at how she lines up when it gets just hand tight. But right now she's definitely loose on there. That's good. No interference so far. So there we go. We got them hand tight there. Oh man, that I would say is looking pretty good. Maybe could go just a scotch more, but as I tighten this down, I don't know. We'll kiss it one more time here, take it down just a little bit more, and then I think we'll be good. All right, so we just took a little bit more off there, and we hit our magic number. It was actually 15.21 when I checked it, so 15.2 is what we were looking for. We're right there. This side looks good. Let's go to the other side and double check how the same one fits on the other side. See if we have to adjust it all before we cut the next one. Okay, here on the passenger side, she is just a little bit closer than the other side. We still got clearance there, but not quite centered. So I think what we'll do is we'll take it down to 15 when we go to this side, and we'll leave the other side at 15.2. All right, so on the passenger side, we ended up with 14.6 for a thickness. So I guess the jury says that if you get between 15.2 and 14.6, it'll work on either side. Let's go ahead and install this guy here. We're going to put the brake line on here first, since it'll be easier since it's out of the car. All right, so we got the driver's side lined up here. I think that's how the mustache spring goes there. Got the new stainless braided line on there, and we are gonna go finish up the passenger side. Then it's time to bleed the brakes with the new fluid. We're done on the passenger side, except for that spring. Somehow I lost it. I'm gonna have to go on a treasure hunt here. All right, we got this side sorted out over here now. So now's the time for my favorite part, bleeding the brakes. Also found the brake fluid somewhere around here. It was hiding in my home office because I had bought that back during COVID, and I think that's when it arrived, and I just kind of squirreled it away in the office. So we'll see how everything goes here with bleeding the fluid out. Yeah. Funny thing is I have never bled the fluid on this car. Well, I guess never replaced the fluid on this car. I've only actually topped it off or filled it up. So this will be the first time she's had fresh fluid through it. And it's no surprise that we had the brake pedal soften up a little bit the last time. As you can see, we've already lost quite a bit there just from doing the brake job before. But what we're going to do to get started here is go ahead and top it off right now. And then we're going to start going around each corner and basically bleeding the brake fluid through. Starting with the back. we go, got her started there. Now when I bleed brake fluid, I typically start the furthest point away from, oh, there we go, furthest point away from the brake master cylinder. And just basically open her up and we'll let her flow through. Should start flowing through by itself once it fills up down inside the piston there, because these were brand new brake calipers, so they're empty. But she should be coming out here any second. Now, I've never used this power bleeder before, but I guess we'll see how she turns out here. So I don't have time to wait for this vacuum bleeder to do its thing. I got some help out here. Abraham's gonna go ahead and push down the pedal the old-fashioned way, and we're gonna see how it bleeds this way. All right, now we're onto the driver's side rear, and we're gonna let this just get a little fluid coming out of there first, and then we're gonna have Abraham push it down again. Another little trick that I use is I'll wrap some plumber's tape around here, and that helps just seal it off against the caliper. Not when we're driving, but while we're doing the bleeding procedure. All right, buddy, go ahead and push it down slowly.
Okay.
Let me know when you're all the way down.
All the way down.
Keep it down. All right, buddy, let it back. You good? Okay. All right, had my son come out and help me get the brake fluid pumped up. Pedal feels pretty good. We're gonna go ahead and take it for a test drive now and see how these brakes hold up and start breaking them in. All right. Well, we're just driving around, bedding in the brakes right now. Rear brakes feel real good. A little spongy on the pedals, so I think I gotta mess around with the bleeding just a little bit, but overall she's stopping good and doesn't have any vibrations or anything like that. So I think we'll do the bleeding one more time up front, and she should be good to go. All right. Well, when we went to do the test drive and bleed the brakes, I noticed the pedal was still soft after multiple attempts to bleed the brakes, and one of the brake bleeders broke off on the driver's side. So passenger side Volvo 4-pot caliper conversion on the front, we got a little drag there. Lucky you, I'm going to do a video on how to install the Volvo 4-pot calipers with some new calipers that I just picked up from Oreilly.